Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Welcome back to the tafsir of Surah Al-An'am. We are on page 145. And page 145 comes after the cross-examination that was talked about on the previous pages of the day of gathering, and how the association between the jinn and the humans was exposed, with them testifying against themselves. Shahidna ala anfusina. The worldly life was named as the agent of their deception. And their disbelief was confirmed as a settled habitual state. Kanu kafirin. Page 145 began with ذَلِكَ أَلَّمْ يَكُنْ رَبُّكَ مُهْلِكَ الْقُرَى بِظُلْمٍ وَأَهْلُهَا غَافِلُونَ. By Allah Azza wa Jal saying that He will not destroy cities for wrongdoing while the people are unaware. And this sets the stage, or this is the purpose why messengers are sent in the first place, so that people can come to know what is right and what is wrong. People can be guided with the guidance of Allah Azza wa Jal. And Allah Azza wa Jal talked about how He appoints levels based on their deeds. He appoints levels for people based on their deeds. A hierarchy of agents, a hierarchy of ranks based on deeds. وَلِكُلٍّ دَرَجَاتٌ مِمَّا عَمِلُوا. Based on the deeds, because this is where the free will of the human beings come in. They get guidance by the coming of the messengers and the books that come with them. But it is ultimately up to the human being to choose the path. They are given a choice, but the actual path is chosen by them because they have a free will. And today, as we encounter some of these ayat, we will talk about that notion of free will in a more deeper fashion. And now, Allah Azza wa Jal, after that, He asserted that He can replace humanity. وَرَبُّكَ الْغَنِيُّ ذُو الرَّحْمَةِ. The fact that He is sending messengers and prophets is part of His rahmah. He does not need your worship or my worship. He does not need your obedience or my obedience. إِن يَشَاء يُذْهِبْكُمْ وَيَسْتَخْلِفْ مِنْ بَعْدِكُمْ مَا يَشَاءُ. He can replace you with others, just like He replaced you. كَمَا أَنْ نَشَاءُكُمْ مِنْ ذُرِّيَّةِ قَوْمٍ آخَرِينَ. Just like you were brought in place of others, He can replace you. And then the Prophet ﷺ was asked to make a direct command. قُلْ يَا قَوْمِ اعْمَلُوا عَلَى مَكَانَتِكُمْ إِنِّي عَامِلٌ. Work or follow the path and work to the best of your ability in following the path. I am indeed working as well. And that is something that exposed why Allah Azza wa Jal sent these prophets and messengers as human beings, so people can follow them. So people don't have an excuse that this is a messenger or a human being, or this is a messenger who doesn't have the same challenges as a human being. Inni amilun. I am also doing the same thing. فَسَوْفَ تَعْلَمُونَ مَنْ تَكُونُ لَهُ عَاقِبَةُ الدَّارِ. Allah mentioned that keep your eyes on the final outcome. Keep your eyes on the prize. Do not get distracted. And this happens to many of us when we give dawah. You may see people making fun of you. You may see people mocking you. You may see people opposing you. This ayah confirms the approach. This ayah confirms the approach and the goal of keeping your eyes on the aqibatud dar. It does not matter what you're going through in this dunya. This dunya, wallahi, is worth nothing. The things that we run after, money, fame, status, approval, bank balance, you name it. They mean nothing. The Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith, which I'm paraphrasing, that if the dunya meant even as little as the wing of a mosquito to Allah Azza wa Jal, then He wouldn't give the disbeliever even a sip of water. It is the final outcome that matters. Innahu la yuflihu dhalimun. The wrongdoers will not be successful. Not in this dunya and not in the hereafter. And then we started a passage last time we met, which we will continue on today. The theme is of expanding on the concept of bid'ah or innovation or innovative practices in the deen. And here Allah Azza wa Jal will give examples of the innovations that were done by the pagan Arabs. Pagan practices that they had come up with rulings that were not coming from Allah Azza wa Jal, rather they were coming from their own za'am and their iftira, coming from their own claims that are wrong and their fabrications, not attributed to Allah Azza wa Jal. And here in ayah 136, the last ayah that we did last time, Allah Azza wa Jal exposed one specific and documented pre-Islamic ritual, pre-Islamic practice, which is dividing the agricultural produce, the crops, and the livestock into shares for Allah and for the partners that they held along with Allah Azza wa Jal, for their idols. When Allah inserts right in the middle of it, bizamihim, this is coming from their own claims that are incorrect. And through this example, Allah Azza wa Jal will expose the absurdity of the ruling, the contradiction, the fact that they are taking something that is coming, everything is coming from Allah Azza wa Jal, and they're saying this is for Allah and this is for somebody else, for my other idols. And not just that, فَمَا كَانَ لِشُرَكَائِهِمْ فَلَا يَصِلُوا إِلَى اللَّهِ. Everything that is allocated, that they allocated to the idols, could not be attributed, could not be given to Allah Azza wa Jal, but the flip is not true. وَمَا كَانَ لِلَّهِ فَهُوَ يَصِلُ إِلَى شُرَكَائِهِمْ. But whatever they had allocated to Allah Azza wa Jal in their share could go to the idols if the, let's say, the produce becomes bad or rotten. It can be replaced from the share that Allah Azza wa Jal has. And Allah ended by saying, Sa'a ma yahkumun. Evil is what they have put in place. One of the strongest divine condemnations. It exposed a fundamental corruption of a system that claimed to honor Allah while actually doing what? Prioritizing the idols over Allah Azza wa Jal. Prioritizing idols at the expense of Allah Azza wa Jal. Look at the absurdity of the ruling. So you cannot mix divine worship with other alliances. And for those who are studying Islamic fiqh, be very careful. Bizamihim. Your rulings require divine sanction. They cannot come out of thin air. They cannot come out of your desires. Absent divine authority, they are nothing but za'am. Today we will begin with ayah number 137, the last ayah on the page. وَكَذَلِكَ زَيَّنَ لِكَثِيرٍ مِّنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ قَتْلَ أَوْلَادِهِمْ شُرَكَاؤُهُمْ. And thus to many of the polytheists, their partners had made to seem pleasing the killing of their own children in order to لِيَرْدُوهُمْ وَلِيَلْبِسُوا عَلَيْهِمْ دِينَهُمْ. In order to bring about their destruction, ironically, and to cover them with confusion in the religion. وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ مَا فَعَلُوا. And if Allah had willed, they would not have been able to do this evil practice and ritual of killing their own children, human sacrifice. فَذَرْهُمْ وَمَا يَفْتَرُونَ. So leave them alone and what they fabricate. وَكَذَلِكَ. And thus, or in this way, just as the produce that was talked about in the previous ayah was made pleasing to them, was made beautiful for them. Similarly, Allah Azza wa Jal will talk about another evil practice in this ayah and in the next few ayahs as well that we will discuss today, which are all beautified by shayateen. Zayyina. Zayyina likathirim minal mushrikeen. Many of the polytheists, these are made beautiful. Zayyina is something that we have encountered in the past few pages. And we talked about how shayateen distract the human being by not forcing people to do evil. They have no control over people. Rather, by beautifying what is evil and making it appear as something good. So that they get convinced, the human beings, that what they are engaging is actually something noteworthy, something admirable, something in their deen. Subhanallah. And so Zayyina is the defining act of shayateen. Not forcing people, but making evil appear good. That is the primary tool that Shaitan uses. He adorns, not compels. لِكَثِيرٍ مِّنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. To many, not all, but many of the polytheists. And what is that evil deed that is being talked about? قَتَلَ أَوْلَادِهِمْ. قَتْلَ أَوْلَادِهِمْ, the killing of their children, human sacrifice. And this is something that is happening to this day and age. It has been happening for centuries. It was happening at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. It is happening even now in different parts of the world. قَتَلَ أَوْلَادِهِمْ refers to two specific practices. First is child sacrifice or human sacrifice to the idols, which is happening today. If you read the Epstein files, some of the exposure in the Epstein files, you will see this being done, this reprehensible evil act being done. Why? To please the idols. And these are done by the elites, whom we have put on a high pedestal, which is incorrect by itself. Our standards are messed up. They're doing it to sacrifice, as a human sacrifice, to please their idols that they worship. And these elites of our time who are doing it are some of the wealthiest people, the people with the most influence, most money, most fame, the billionaires of our time. Many of them are indulging in these evil practices of human sacrifice. And it also refers to the burying of daughters alive, which was done at the time of the Prophet ﷺ as a pre-Islamic ritual, pre-Islamic pagan ritual. It is still done in many parts of the world, even today. And so this قَتَلَ أَوْلَادِهِمْ encompasses both of these practices of human sacrifice. شُرَكَاؤُهُمْ. The subject of that evil practice is coming after the object, after the predicate. It is a delayed subject, شُرَكَاؤُهُمْ, which is coming after قَتَلَ أَوْلَادِهِمْ. The delay of the subject after the object creates the rhetorical effect. The horror of killing their own children, the horror of human sacrifice, is stated before the agent who does it. And both the idols and the shayateen, the idols are the recipients of that human sacrifice, and the shayateen are the instigators of that human sacrifice. Zayyina is the work of the shayateen. And why do they do it? Look at the irony of this situation. لِيَرْدُوهُمْ. They think the people who are working and doing these evil human sacrifice, they think they're doing it for their own benefit. They're doing it to get ahead in this life, to win fame, to win success, how we define success in this world, to get money and wealth and influence. In other words, لِيَرْدُوهُمْ. In actuality, it is causing them to perish. It is causing them to be destroyed in order to destroy them. لِيَرْدُوهُمْ. That is how Shayateen have beautified these evil acts of human sacrifice to many of the mushrikeen who are indulging in it, to destroy them. And that is the goal of the Shayateen. Remember what Iblis said when he asked for long life from Allah Azza wa Jal, so that he can distract people from the straight path and cause their destruction. That is the number one and the only goal of the Shaitan. And these Shayateen who are working, they are working to destroy the future. They're working to destroy the human beings who are indulging in these practices. وَلِيَلْبِسُوا عَلَيْهِمْ دِينَهُمْ. And the second purpose of the Shayateen beautifying these evil acts is to cause confusion in their deen. Labasa is to make something confused or to obscure something. لِيَلْبِسُوا عَلَيْهِمْ دِينَهُمْ means to make their religion confused, to blur the boundaries between right and wrong, to blur the boundaries between divine worship and idol worship so thoroughly that they cannot distinguish them anymore. وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ مَا فَعَلُوا. If Allah had willed, they wouldn't have been able to indulge in this evil practice. This is the law of divine sovereignty. It is a counterfactual conditional here. If Allah had willed, وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ. But the fact that Allah Azza wa Jal did not stop them from doing this evil practice is because of the free will that He has given them. He has sent messengers, He has sent books to guide them and show them the right path, and left the choice to the human being. And the human being will be held accountable on the day of judgment for what they chose in this dunya. And that is why if somebody asks you, how is Allah Azza wa Jal allowing all the evil to continue in society? For example, this human sacrifice that we talked about here, or that was exposed in the Epstein files, or the genocide that is happening in Gaza and other places. The answer is, وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ مَا فَعَلُوا. If Allah had willed, these things wouldn't have happened. But He has also given human being a free will and ability to think and reason, a fitrah, and sent messengers. So they can choose for themselves. And choose based on their choices in this dunya, they will end up in the right place in the akhirah. So leave them. فَذَرْهُمْ does not mean abandon dawah. No, give dawah, but cease to be consumed by the response to your dawah. Leave them to Allah Azza wa Jal. وَمَا يَفْتَرُونَ. And what they fabricate. Yaftarun. You will see this word iftara appearing a few times today. Similarly, the word zarhum will also appear a few times today. Bizamihim. Their claim. Iftara means to invent, to fabricate something, to forge a falsehood. Wama yaftarun, and their invented deen, religion. So this ayah 137 exposes the most extreme consequence of the pagan religious system, getting influenced by shayateen, to rule something as evil as human sacrifice, child sacrifice. A practice that is made to appear beautiful by the work of shayateen behind the idols, zayyana. And the purpose was explicit. Why did the shayateen do this? Why did the shayateen mislead the human beings? The mushrikeen. Liyarduhum, to destroy them. That is the number one goal of shayateen. Liyalbisu alayhim dinahum. And to cause total religious confusion, so they cannot distinguish the right from the wrong, and their path to recovery, to coming back to the deen of Allah, becomes more and more difficult, almost to the point of being impossible. That is the path, or that is the purpose of the zayyina that the shayateen do. Likasirim minal mushrikeen. And the irony is so complete in this ayah, because the mushrikeen who were doing these acts, like human sacrifice, or they are doing it today, they are doing it because they think they are honoring their idols, whoever they worship. And they're doing it to get ahead in this life, whether it is to achieve fame or to achieve wealth or influence or power. They are, with the help of the zayyana of shayateen, they have been convinced that these strange and ritualistic practices, these strange ritualistic practices and the evil that they do, like qatala awladihim, human sacrifice, will lead them, is beneficial for them in this dunya, and will lead them to success. And they are being misled to their own doom. Liyarduhum. They are being led to their own doom and destruction by the shayateen. And the page closes with a very powerful command to the Prophet. Fazarhum wama yaftarun. Leave them and their fabrications. So some key lessons in ayah 137. First of all, satanic beautification, tazeen, can make even child murder, human sacrifice, something as reprehensible and evil as that, appear religious, appear beneficial to them, appear an act of worship of their idols. And that is what shaitan can do. That is how shayateen works. That is how shayateen work. They beautify the act for you, an evil act. So you become convinced that you're on the right track. They have no control to force you to do an evil. They know that. They will make it appear, an evil act appear beautiful and beneficial. Second, the ultimate goal of satanic influence is what? Liyarduhum. Remember this. Liyarduhum. Total destruction. The goal was total ruin of those who obeyed them. Third, religious confusion is a primary satanic strategy. Liyalbisu alayhim dinahum. Mixing true and false until people get confused and cannot distinguish the right from the wrong. Fourth, divine sovereignty encompasses even the evil acts of humans. Divine sovereignty encompasses the evil acts of humans. Walau sha Allahu ma fa'aluh. Nothing happens that is outside divine will. Everything is happening, even the evil is happening with the permission of Allah. And that is a part of his divine wisdom and divine judgment and the divine system that he has put in place, where human beings have free will to choose the path. The right path and the wrong path, both are exposed by Allah Azza wa Jal through the sending of messengers, which is a part of his mercy. He is Al-Ghani. He does not need any worship from any human being. He does not benefit. It is part of his mercy that he sends messengers and he asks people to make a choice. To make a choice so they can be held accountable for on the day of judgment. So for those who encounter practices in Islamic deen and culture that appear devotional, but are not grounded. And all of us know of such practices, many such practices in the Islamic world. وَكَذَلِكَ زَيِّنَا. Look at the example in this case. قَتْلَ أَوْلَادِهِمْ. Even something as evil as killing of their children was made to appear beautiful. And for those whose dawah is met with persistent rejection, فَذَرْهُمْ وَمَا يَفْتَرُونَ. The da'i's responsibility is to complete the argument and to convey the message in the best of manners. The response is not in their hands. And so in this page 145, we encountered some of the principles that are very important for us to understand. Genuine unawareness of Islam is the threshold for suspension of divine punishment. وَأَهْلُهَا غَافِلُونَ. Also, لِكُلٍّ دَرَجَاتٌ مِمَّا عَمِلُوا. The Quranic ranking is based purely on your choices and purely on your deeds. No hereditary or lineage or social component can be attached to it or influences it. Ma rabbuka bighafilin ensures that no deed, no choices that you and I make goes unrecorded. We also mentioned this notion of civilizational replacement and the hubris of contemporary powers. No matter how powerful some of these oppressors think they are not permanent. إِن يَشَأْ يُذْهِبْكُمْ وَيَسْتَخْلِفْ. They will be replaced, just like they replaced others. زَيِّنَ لِكَثِيرٍ. Remember, this mechanism of making evil appear beautiful is the foundational tool of also contemporary media and advertising. The Quran's exposure of Tazyin as a satanic strategy applies directly to normalized harm that is presented as liberation or progress sometimes. And self-made religious law and za'am of modern religious innovation, biza'mihim, is the Quran's dismissal of self-invented religious categories as za'am. Now, on page 146, after exposing a couple of these evil practices of pre-Islamic Arab paganism, now page 146 will begin by systematically dismantling some other parts of the pagan religious system, some other innovations, which are not based on divine authority. It will drive deeper into some specific categories of livestock and crops that were declared off limits through some fabricated rulings. So the next three ayat, we'll talk about some of those fabricated rulings that we will talk about today, which will extend the argument that was made on the previous page about Shaitaan beautifying evil and appearing it as good, and influencing the human beings who get influenced by Shaitaan to cause innovation in the deen, to bring innovative practices that are evil, but are made to appear beautiful to them. Why? Because they think they are doing something to please their idols. They think they are doing something religious. وَقَالُوا هَذِهِ أَنْعَامٌ وَحَرْثٌ حِجْرٌ لَا يَطْعَمُهَا. And they say, these, هَذِهِ, are livestock and crops that are forbidden. No one can eat. إِلَّا مَنْ نَشَاءُ. Except whom we will. That we is referring to the elite, the priesthood. Bizamihim. Allah mentions this again, bizamihim, by their claim, which means it is an incorrect. opinion. It's an incorrect ruling. Second time, you will see the word an'am coming 3 times in this ayah. The second time it comes with another ruling of the pagan Arabs. وَأَنْعَامٌ حُرِّمَتْ ظُهُورُهَا. The second ruling. Livestock whose backs are forbidden. In other words, you cannot ride those animals, like some camels, certain camels. And the third, وَأَنْعَامٌ لَا يَذْكُرُونَ اسْمَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهَا افْتِرَاءً عَلَيْهِ. The third are livestock over which the name of Allah is not mentioned at the time of slaughter. All of this is an invention of untruth attributed to Allah. سَيَجْزِيهِمْ بِمَا كَانُوا يَفْتَرُونَ. He will punish them for what they were inventing. See that term, iftira. Za'am and iftira are being talked about, are being mentioned a few times. وَقَالُوا. And they said, the pagan religious authorities declared these rules. These, hazihi, referring to certain animals being singled out for their religious status. An'am, livestock, like camel, like cattle, like sheep, like goats. An'amun here refers to the specific animals that we covered, the 4 categories that we covered of pagan dedicated livestock in Suratul Maida, Ayah 103. Bahira, Saiba, Wasila, Ham. Waharsun, and crops, produce. The combination of An'amun, Waharsun shows the prohibitions were comprehensive, covering both animal and plant source. Hijrun, they are made haram, they are prevented. Hijr literally means that which is prevented, forbidden, or inviolable. From hajara. Hajara means to prevent, to confine. So hijrun means what is being made haram. La yat'amuha, no one may eat from them. Haram in the pre-Islamic Arab speech. Hijrun. La yat'amuha. La yat'amuha, they cannot, no one can eat from them. Ta'am means to taste or to eat. Illa man nasha'u, except whom we will. And this refers to the priesthood, the religious authorities of that time, the pre-Islamic Arab culture, who reserved the forbidden livestock for themselves or for special occasions. Subhanallah. Which means it is exposing their self-serving nature. Bizamihim, by their claim. Here Allah Azza wa Jal by saying Bizamihim is exposing their self-serving nature and rejecting this ruling. It is not coming from divine authority. And this Zamihim is coming for the second time to emphasize that these are human-generated, self-generated rulings, not based on divine authority. And then the second and the third ruling is also coming. Pagan ruling is also coming in this ayah, which are all bizamihim. وَأَنْعَامٌ حُرِّمَتْ ظُهُورُهَا, whose backs are forbidden. Here it refers to the ham, the stallion camel, forbidden to be ridden after a certain number of offsprings. Ham. Again, a ritual or a Arab, pre-Islamic Arab custom that this camel we cannot ride on anymore because it has given birth to 5 offspring. Ham. Hurrimat zuhuruha, whose backs are forbidden. Here it refers to both the saiba and the ham. You cannot ride their backs. You cannot ride their backs. Saiba is a she-camel that was released for the idols. Humans cannot ride it, but it's only ridden by idols. That was their belief. Bahira was a she-camel with its ear slit after 5 births, which means you cannot ride it anymore. Again, weird rulings that were invented, self-invented by the human beings, not attributed to divine authority. And the third, وَأَنْعَامٌ لَا يَذْكُرُونَ اسْمَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهَا, on which the name of Allah is not mentioned at the time of slaughter. In other words, they mentioned the name of an idol, or they purposely left out the name of Allah Azza wa Jal. They invoked their idol names or slaughtered without any names being mentioned at all. Iftira'an alayhi, as a fabrication against him. Iftira'an alayhi is a fabrication that is attributed to or against him, Allah Azza wa Jal. All these categories, three categories that are referred to in this ayah, are fabrications against Allah Azza wa Jal, falsely attributed to divine authority or divine command. Sayajzihim, he will punish them. He will certainly punish them. Sa at the beginning creates near future certainty. For sure, he will punish them. Bima kanu yaftarun, for what they used to invent. The word iftira comes twice in this ayah. What they were habitually fabricating again and again. So this ayah continues the systematic exposure of the pagan religious food system, which began in ayah number 136. Some of these bad, evil, pagan religious customs are being talked about in this passage. Here, Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned three such practices. All of them are declared as iftira'an alayhi, fabrications against Allah. And all of them will meet with a stated consequence. Sayajzihim bima kanu yaftarun. So some key lessons in ayah 138. First, all the three pagan livestock categories that I mentioned here, which were pre-Islamic Arab customs, are named iftira'an alayhi. Not merely error, but falsely attributing to the divine. Second, bizamihim is repeated. Self-made religious authority is always mere conjecture and za'am. Third, deliberately omitting Allah's name at the time of slaughter is part of the pagan system. La yazkuruna ismallahi alayha. Direct connection to ayah 118 and 121, which we encountered earlier. Fourth, the punishment for habitual fabrication against Allah is certain. Sayajzihim bima kanu yaftarun. So for those who encounter religious prohibitions without Quran and Sunnah basis, bizamihim. This is the Quran's two-word dismissal. Any prohibition in deen requires a dalil. Absent that, it is nothing but za'am. And for those who are studying Islamic food law, La yazkuruna ismallahi alayhi iftira'an alayhi. Mentioning Allah's name at slaughter is central. So the example that Allah is mentioning here is of the pagans' deliberate omission, which is a crime of fabrication against Allah. La yazkuruna ismallahi alayhi iftira'an alayhi. Very important. Now we move to the next ayah, which will talk about some other customs, some other rulings that were fabricated. وَقَالُوا مَا فِي بُطُونِ هَذِهِ الْأَنْعَامِ خَالِصَةٌ لِلذُّكُرِنَا وَمُحَرَّمٌ عَلَى أَزْوَاجِنَا. Subhanallah. And they say what is in the wombs of these animals is exclusively for consumption by the males, and it is haram for the females. وَإِن يَكُمْ مَيْتَةً فَهُمْ فِيهِ شُرَكَاء. But if it is stillborn, they all share in it, the males and the females. سَيَجْزِيهِمْ وَصْفَهُمْ. So he will punish them for their description. إِنَّهُ حَكِيمٌ عَلِيمٌ. He is all wise and knowing. وَقَالُوا, and then they said, another self-proclaimed ruling is coming. This ruling is about animal fetuses, which was an established Arab pagan law. Ma fi butuni, what is in the wombs, referring to the fetuses or produce inside these dedicated animals. The fetuses and any milk or produce inside the saiba and similar animals and categories that they had come up with. Again, all innovation, all innovated. Hazihil an'ami. These animals connects to the same animals that are being talked about here. Khalisatan. Khalisatun means exclusively for, reserved for. Lizukurina is exclusively reserved for the males. Khalisa comes from the root word khalasa, which means to be free of mixture, to be pure. Khalisatun lizukurina, exclusively reserved for the males in our society. Only the males can eat from the fetuses, not the females. The live births of these dedicated animals were reserved exclusively for men. وَمُحَرَّمٌ عَلَى أَزْوَاجِنَا, and forbidden ala upon their wives and their females. وَإِن يَكُنْ مَيْتَةً, but if it was stillborn, the fetus was born dead or stillborn, then فَهُمْ فِيهِ شُرَكَاء, both males and females can eat from it. And this is a Quranic way of exposing their hypocrisy and internal contradiction. When the animal is live, the fetus is born live, it becomes haram for women. Only the males can eat from it. Whereas when the animal is dead, a maita, technically it should be haram for everyone. Rather, they all eat from it. This is them flipping the ruling on its head. And the Quran is exposing this hypocrisy. A live legitimate animal is restricted to men. A dead technically haram animal is shared by all. If anything, the dead animal should be more forbidden. Sayajzihim wasfahum. He will certainly punish them. It's a repetition from the previous ayah. Wasfahum, for their description. The words that they use to describe these rulings. Their verbal declarations of religious halal and haram based on not divine judgment, divine authority, but their own za'am, their own claims and conjecture. Innahu hakimun alimun. He is all wise and knowing. His punishment is based on his perfect wisdom. And he knows precisely what they said and attributed to him. So this ayah exposes a specific ruling, just like the previous few ayahs have done. This ruling is the contents of the wombs of dedicated livestock. If it is alive, is reserved for the males. If it is dead, both the males and females can eat from it. And this forces the internal contradiction. The divine punishment is specified as wasfahum, for their verbal declarations, descriptions. And the closing Hakimun Alim mirrors what we saw in ayah number 128 a few pages ago. Both times after announcing divine punishment, these two words ground the just ruling in wisdom and knowledge. So some key lessons in ayah 139. The pagan system was internally contradictory. Live fetus forbidden to women, dead fetus shared. It is not principled, it is self-serving. Second, punishment targets the verbal framing of fabrications as religion. Wasfahum. Sayajzihim wasfahum. Words used to dress fabrications as divine law carry specific liability. Third, gender-based food restrictions without divine sanction are fabrication. Muharramun ala azwajina, as is mentioned in this case. Fourth, divine wisdom and knowledge underlie the punishment. Hakimun alim. So for those who are encountering gendered religious restrictions without clear evidence, Muharramun ala azwajina bizamihim. The Quran's explicit template. Gendered prohibitions without divine authority are za'am, and iftira, the burden of proof is on the restriction. And for those in positions of religious authority, sayajzihim wasfahum. This punishment is specifically for the words used to claim divine sanction. This is the specific liability the Quran targets. And then in the next ayah, ayah number 140, Allah Azza wa Jal will conclude this passage and give his ruling after mentioning all these examples of evil practices that were fabricated. قَدْ خَسِرَ الَّذِينَ قَتَلُوا أَوْلَادَهُمْ سَفَهًا بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ. Those who killed their children in foolishness, without knowledge. وَحَرَّمُوا مَا رَزَقَهُمُ اللَّهُ افْتِرَاءً عَلَى اللَّهِ. And who forbade what Allah had provided for them, inventing untruth against Allah. قَدْ ضَلُّوا وَمَا كَانُوا مُهْتَدِينَ. They have gone astray and were not guided. So this is the conclusion that Allah has given for these fabricated pre-Islamic Arab rituals, and talked about both the food as well as the killing of children, human sacrifice. Qad, indeed, for sure. Qad with a past verb. Khasira, past verb. Certainly, for sure, they are lost. They have definitely lost or suffered great loss. Khasira means to lose, to suffer loss, or to be ruined. And here loss refers to both in this world and in the next world. In this world, they lost children, and in the next world, they lost divine mercy for those doing human sacrifice. الَّذِينَ قَتَلَ أَوْلَادَهُمْ. Those who did human sacrifice, who killed. Referring back to the ayah we talked about, ayah 137, child sacrifice, human sacrifice, which still happens to this day. Killing their children, sacrificing their children, awladahum. Here, this is an extreme example that Allah is mentioning. Killing your own children is the extreme, ultimate expression of the corruption and the false religion that you have fabricated. And Allah calls it foolishness. Safahan. In foolishness. You killed your children, you did human sacrifice, that was just being foolish on your part. Stupidity, lightness of mind. In other words, it is not based on any rational argument or rational proof or religious basis or divine authority. It is pure safahan. And it was done بِغَيْرِ ilm, without any knowledge. With no knowledge from Allah Azza wa Jal authorizing it. It's a fabricated tradition, not divine guidance. So it's a double disqualification. Safaham بِغَيْرِ ilm. Double disqualification. And then Allah will talk about the food. وَحَرَّمُوا مَا رَزَقَهُمْ. They forbade the food that Allah had provided for them, which talks about some of the evil practices that we mentioned in the previous ayah, all fabricated. What Allah Azza wa Jal had provided, razaqahumullahu, which means what Allah had provided as their rizq. And their crime is now compounded, not merely fabricating a rule, but rejecting what? A divine gift, a gift of Allah, ma razaqahumullahu, what Allah Azza wa Jal had provided for them. Iftira'an ala Allah. This is nothing but fabrication against Allah. This is the third iftira we see in this passage. And the worst form is fabrication that is attributed to the divine. You say you're doing it because Allah, it is based on divine authority, which is a lie. They have for sure gone astray. Qad dallu. See, the ayah started with qad. You see the second qad. For sure, for sure. They have strayed from the path. They are lost. They've gone astray. And something even stronger is mentioned. Wama kanu muhtadeen. And they were never guided. They were never guided. Not only did they go astray, but were never guided in the first place. Their entire religious framework was straying from the start, from the beginning. So this ayah is the Quran's definitive verdict on the entire pagan religious food system. Two specific acts are being called out in this ayah. Killing their children or human sacrifice. And second, forbidding what Allah Azza wa Jal had provided, the food. And the verdict is total loss. Qad khasira. They lost their children in this world and they lost their deen and their standing before Allah Azza wa Jal on the day of accountability. Qad dallu wa ma kanu muhtadeen. A beautiful way to close this passage. They strayed and were never, ever guided. And this double negative, not only did they go astray, but were never guided, is the strongest possible declaration of their spiritual state. Their entire religious framework was straying from the beginning. So some key lessons in Ayah 140. Total loss is the verdict for killing children and forbidding Allah's provision. Subhanallah. Complete loss in both worlds. Second, human sacrifice and child killing was in safwa and bighayri ilm. Double negative, double characterization. It was morally foolish and intellectually groundless. And the same thing applies to people who have been exposed in the Epstein files. The human sacrifice, sheer foolishness, and not based on knowledge. Third, forbidding what Allah has provided is iftira against Allah. Self-made food prohibitions attributed to Allah carry specific divine liability. Fourth, they were never guided. Wama kanu muhtadeen. They were never guided in the first place. So for those who wonder about the consequences of taking innocent lives, human sacrifice, as we know examples of some of the elites are involved in our current day and age. The verdict is comprehensive loss. Foolishness and ignorance do not mitigate. They are the characterization of the crime. And for those who impose food restrictions beyond what Allah has forbidden, don't do that. وَحَرَّمُوا مَا رَزَقَهُمُ اللَّهُ إِفْتِرَاءً عَلَى اللَّهِ. Forbidding what Allah has made permissible or making haram what Allah has made halal and attributing it to Allah is iftira, is fabrication. A specific sin with divine liability. So with that, we have come to the end of today's session and provided a conclusion for this entire passage that we began last time we met, about a few examples of the fabrications in the deen that the pagan Arabs had done. And wallahi, many of these practices are still alive. They are still alive and kicking. They are happening in different parts of the world. And Allah Azza wa Jal has called our attention to how dangerous bid'ah is, to how dangerous innovation is in the deen. And claiming it is coming from Allah Azza wa Jal, when in reality it is coming from Za'am, your claim, and it is coming from iftira, your fabrication. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to understand the Quran, apply it in our lives, and to live our lives on the straight path. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum.